Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to our Shotsukihoyo service for the month of October. The Shotsukihoyo service remembers those relatives and friends who have passed away in the month of October. Let us begin with quiet meditation. Please sit quietly and place your hands together in gassho. Sensei will ring the bell to begin and end the meditation. Namo Amida Butsu. Namo Amida Butsu. Namo Amida Butsu. Please stand for our opening gatha, and for the gathas today we'll be using the brown book. When we see the golden sun on page 166, and remain standing for the reading of Shinran's words, number 3 on page 8. Shindan's words number 3. The radiant light, unhindered and inconceivable, eradicates suffering and brings realization of joy. The excellent name, perfectly embodying all practices, eliminates obstacles and dispels doubt. This is a teaching and practice for our era. Devote yourself solely to it. Namo Amida Butsu. Namo Amida Butsu. Namo Amida Butsu. The names of the Shotsukihoyo honorees for this month will now be read. Those family members and friends observing Shotsukihoyo, please come forward for incense offering during this time. Shotsuki honorees. Teruichi Arishita. Suya Fujihara. Michio Fujimoto. Jio Itsuno. Eka Kimura. Ki Kimura. Shoichi Kobayashi. Tomotaro Kobuke. Fusa Matsuda. Chisa Nakagawa. Emi Nishikawa. Kaneko Noguchi. Seiji Okuda. Seiichi Onishi. Chotaro Otani. Harue Otani. Jintaro Otani. Tom Shimazu. Helen Kim. Isako Yoshimura. Henry Arishita. Genichi Sugioka. Katsuzo Tsurumoto. Suematsu Ushino. Hisakichi Yamamoto. Okihachi Yasuda. Kiku Yonemura. Ted Tetsuo Namba. Kazuzo Matoba. Hiromu John Nakagawa. Satoru Jack Otani. Raymond Morita. Henry Hamamoto. Sadako Fujita. Dorothy Masako Ono. Masako Matsumoto. Ken Akutagawa. Harue Tsujihara. Masaji Tsujihara. Marlon Shimizu. Wilder Bentley, Alice Shimazu, Sakae Curly Ishizu, Alice Sugiyama, and Reverend Hiroshi Abiko. Today's sutra will be Sambujo on page 24. We'll be using the purple book. This will be followed by a dedication and then Amida Kyo on pages 103 to 113.
Today, on this occasion of the Shotsuki service for the month of October, members of the temple families have reverently come before Amida Buddha in memory of their beloved. With deepest reverence and thankfulness for the all-embracing wisdom and compassion of Amida, we reaffirm the three homages, Namo Butsu, Namo Kie Ho, Namo Kie So. I go to the Buddha for guidance. I go to the Dharma for guidance. I go to the Sangha for guidance. Please repeat the Nembutsu. Namo Amida Butsu. Namo Amida. Namo Amida. Namo Amida. Namanda.
Shotsukihoyo
仏即位直事現像本国本直教領者利法極楽国土上中行税空毒将軍仏師者利法帰国上部修十奇妙雑式司教百国着法無者利化力敏が無名司長税商修長長や六時水和下本法年長高君合力七宝大文合唱の文行税東方合同修上門税恩に大失念仏念法念僧者利法尿没意識上実税財法少々小医者が異部国道部三幕宗者利法合部国道小部三幕道司名大病有実税小宗長改税阿弥陀仏欲療法温泉流園芸少佐者利法異部国道未復水路小法五十九法ラモ水未妙恩未妙薬泉十学同時空差門税恩者開示年上年仏年法年相死心者利法国土長寿尿税空毒症アマンダブ
We will now have a Dharma message from our supervising minister, Reverend Dennis Fujimoto.
Good afternoon, everyone. Nice to see so many coming up to Oshoko during the reading of the Shotsuki names. And it's always a special part of our Shin Buddhist tradition to have our Shotsuki service. And here and at many temples, it's at the very first Sunday of each month. So as we remember the people we have lost in our families, we encourage each other to come to the service and to sit together and to be here as family, and maybe a plan for a meal afterwards or something like that. And it's always a special time to come as a family unit and to reinforce this in the younger ones and to see what this tradition is about. And I think it is a very special part of our Shin Buddhist tradition. So it's always heartwarming to see the different families coming up, and I appreciate that effort very much. Last week in Alameda, it was our last Sunday of the month, and in September, before the pandemic, and we started again to have an outdoor service on the final Sunday, and so we were sitting in front of the temple in our chairs, and because it was the last Sunday, we also have this session called Ask Reverend Dennis. So after the Dharma message, we have an Ask Reverend Dennis, and people just have different questions that they wanted to ask me, kind of informal. So people are raising their hands, and last week there just happened to be quite a few questions, and besides on the spot, people asking questions, some send in questions through email, and because there were so many live questions last week, there was one question about the Dharma name, the Hoyo, that I didn't have a chance to address and bring up. So I used that as the topic for today's Dharma message. So most of the times, almost always, when we lose someone in our family, we have the funeral service, and at that time, a Hoyo, a Dharma name, is provided to the person that is lost, presented to the family, and that is a major occasion where the Dharma name is presented. But there are other occasions too. Sometimes people will take a trip to Enmanji, the mother temple in Kyoto, Japan, and they want to receive their Buddhist name in Japan, so they will apply to participate in this type of service at Enmanji, and the Gomonchu will provide the names of these people who want to participate in that service. And so that's another occasion. Still another occasion is the Gomonchu might come to America and visit a few of our temples, and that's a special occasion, and people might want to take advantage of that and to have their Buddhist name presented and provided by the Gomonchu during this special trip. So that's another occasion. And then another time is instead of the Gomonchu, the Bishop of the Buddhist Churches of America, he can hold such a service, a Kiyashiki service, and people who would like to receive their Buddhist name, they will apply to participate in this type of service, and they'll have a special service and ceremony, and the Bishop of the Buddhist Churches of America will give each person who wanted to have their Hoyo provided, that they would each get a Buddhist name then too. Okay. So these are special occasions, and otherwise, if it's a funeral service, more often than not, it's the temple minister that provides this Dharma name, Hoyo, to the person that has passed on. And to me, it seems like when you have your own minister provide the Dharma name, sometimes there's a history, and you go through things together, and maybe a closeness, a relationship with the family, with the person that has passed away. And so sometimes the Buddhist name provided by your minister is all the more touching, more personal, and so you appreciate that as well. So they each have a different kind of nuance to receiving the Buddhist name, whether from the Gomonchu or in Japan, from the bishop, from your own temple minister. So these are different occasions when you receive the Buddhist name. So when I'm thinking about this, I was thinking about growing up, and my father was a Buddhist minister as well. And when I was small, to me, he was always sensei or Reverend Hogan, Fujimoto, right? So people would acknowledge him at the temple, and so I didn't know his prior names unless I was with a different group. So when he was youngster, his first name was William, right? So William Fujimoto, and people who knew him, went to school with him, I call him Bill Fujimoto, which sounds completely foreign to me, right? And his Japanese name was Yoshihiko. So his brothers or his father might call him Yoshihiko. My cousins would call him Uncle Yosh. So all these names are floating around depending on if we were in LA visiting family or at the temple, so different names, okay? So when he became a minister, he took the Buddhist name Hoyo. And so he would be, maybe I was junior high school, we're living in San Leandro, and he was also a very avid golfer, so he would pick the weeds in the front yard and then he'd start pretending like he's swinging a golf club, right? Practicing his swing, and so because he was Hogan, some people referred to him as Ben Hogan, right? The golfer, right? And our neighbors, the Italian guy, and his son and I were good friends, but he would come out and he'd see my father swinging his imaginary golf course, and so he played golf too, and he comes out and knowing his name, Buddhist name is Hogan, he calls him Hoagie. Hey Hoagie, how you doing? So I hear all these different names as he would, depending on what the situation was, right? So it would be a different name completely. So thinking of this for my own self, right? I was Dennis growing up, and so people would call me Dennis, and when I made trouble, it'd be Dennis the Menace, right? So he's the minister's son, they're always the worst, Dennis the Menace was heard quite often, right? And I would go to high school, Spanish language class, so there my teacher called me Denicio, you'll be Denicio. So during the Spanish class, I'm Denicio. And I had my middle name, which was Shin. So Shin, and Grandma would call me Shin, Grandpa, and to make it Shin-chan. Shin-chan is kind of like a cuter version of Shin, okay? And then when I went to school, my last name Fujimoto, so the guys would call me Fuj. Hey Fuj, get over here, okay? And the girls would call me Fuji because it's just cuter, right? So depending on who's calling me, either Fuj or Fuji. And so my father was at the Fresno, Butsu when I was very small, so after nursery school, we received our Buddhist name. So we're 4 years old and we received our Buddhist name at our graduation. So I have no idea what that Buddhist name was. And so, you just received something, right? And certainly when I became a minister, then I became Reverend Joshin Fujimoto. Okay? Certainly that Buddhist name has much more meaning and impact to me. And so when I came back from Japan after receiving ordination and this Buddhist name, some of my college friends, telling them about the experience, I came back and I have this Buddhist name, Joshin. So wow. And Hakujin friends, right? White guys, and they're talking to me, Joshin. So what does that mean? It means pure faith. So these guys went to Catholic school, high school, right? So pure faith, whoa, that's hard to live up to. So no, not really. Joshin, pure faith is received from Amida. It's not something I do. I don't dedicate my efforts and cultivate pure faith. Pure faith is received from Amida when we say Namo Amida Butsu. So when you look at it that way, you have to look at our teachings a little bit more closely, right? So even though it means pure faith, it's not like a description of me. In a sense, it's more of a description of Amida and our relationship that becomes. Okay? So it's a different kind of learning experience to consider your Buddhist name and what do these two characters mean? What do these kanji characters mean? So with that, when we look at Shinran Shonin, he had a number of names too. So before, when he was a younger boy, he was Matsuaka Maru, and then he was, a lot of tumultuous time when he was a youngster, and famine and the plague was going on, and so many people were dying in Japan. They would just stack them up in the streets or things like that. And if your family was a little bit well off, you would be placed in a monastery because at least you would be protected. At least you get meals and you would be able to study and learn something, go to school. So it was preference, very much so, to be able to go into the monastery. So when he went into the monastery, his name changed. Upon entering Mount Hiei, he became Hannen. Okay, so a different name. He received his Buddhist name. And after he met his teacher Honen, he was given a different name, combining Doshaku and Genku, two of our 7 masters. So he was called Shaku. Okay, so combining these two teachers, prominent teachers of our Jodo Shinshu tradition. And so you could see from there, it's not just the name, but 2 key people in the teachings, and he was studying, trying to advance in this monastery as a monk and trying to study more and more, and then he takes on this type of name. Later on, when he finally became Shinran, this is combining another 2 of the masters, Vasubanju and Dondan, and this is after he was exiled. Then he became Shinran in a different part of his life. So he came into the teachings, came to know the teachings, and what was taught by certain masters began to touch him much more deeply. Okay, so when you look at the teachings, what Vasubanju taught is having the one mind of Amida rather than the many difficult practices of our own personal effort, self-power effort. He's looking at other power effort. And Donlan is saying the same thing, the other power versus self-power. And so our teaching is considered an other power rather than us trying to perfect ourselves as human beings. We're receiving the light, the wisdom and compassion of Amida. Okay? And so we see this relationship of Amida and ourselves, and they always have this type of saying, the brighter the light, the darker the shadow. So almost simultaneously, as we learn the teachings of Amida, the light that shines upon us, we notice our own limitations, our own shadows. We still have our foibles, difficulties, attachments, ego-centeredness. All of these we have. We had them before, we still have them now, but we notice it more because of the light of Amida, right? So in this relationship, it's almost like simultaneously we recognize the light of Amida and our own limitations as a human being. And in this, our perspective of ourselves becomes clearer. Okay, we're not fooling ourselves that, well, I'm getting better, I'm improving as a person, I'm doing all of this. Maybe you are improving, but in terms of becoming enlightened, you're not really at a very high level. Okay, and this is all recognized. So this is part of our evolution in awakening, to recognize this dual aspects that we see, that we come to see when we cultivate our relationship with Amida, when we say Namo Amida Butsu, coming here, when we come to offer incense, all of these practices, we are coming to terms with all of these things. So when Shinran went through all of his training and practice and finally coming to this Nembutsu practice, he's looking at himself, being able to see himself honestly. And so this is what we do, to come eventually, to come to see ourselves honestly, okay? To notice our own limitations. So for him and for us, no matter how much we try, we can't do it alone. So we call upon Amida Buddha through the Nembutsu. Okay? So finally, I think Shinran Shoni later in his life started calling himself Gutoku, and he would refer to himself as Gutoku. And what Gutoku means is more like ignorant, bald-headed fool, stubble-haired, bald-headed fool. And so he's really like not praising himself at all, right? He's just an ordinary being, and I think that's one of the things that we come to appreciate in Shinran Shoni when we come to the altar. Some other schools, they might have the head of their school in the center of the altar. And here, Shinran Shoni quietly sitting to the side, right? So the main object is Amida Buddha, not Shinran Shoni. So he sits to the side. I am nothing. I have no disciples. I'm just an ignorant, bald-headed fool. So with that quietness, wow, that's very powerful. And it makes us look all the more at our own past. Okay? So how many of you have Buddhist names? A few of you. Okay, a good number, yes. So in Alameda as well, we had our centennial about 7 years ago, and they had a special service, and maybe 20, 30 people received their Buddhist name. So you don't have to wait until you pass away to receive your Buddhist name, and it should be that you receive a Buddhist name before you pass away. Okay? I mean, then you can know it, then you can see it. And oftentimes when we have the opportunity to receive a Buddhist name, sometimes it's done like you pick a kanji character and the minister picks another kanji character that would combine with it, and through that you know what that character is. There's a book that has all these proper Hoyo Buddhist names, and so we would like to find one that's in there. But you pick one character, whether it's teacher or pureness, purity, light, some kind of theme, and then combine it with another character, and through that you come to know your own Buddhist name. You come to know why these two combine to make it such a meaning. So one of the things I try to explain, sometimes the minister will pick a name. So this person was a school teacher for 50 years, so we'll put teacher and family or something like that, describing the individual. But to me, the Buddhist name is a description of Amida, right? My Joshin, that's not me, that's Amida. And so through my study and practice of Shin Buddhism, my thoughts, the direction of my thinking turn to Amida, right? And so when we lose someone, they become our teachers, and not just describing mom or dad, grandma, grandpa. Because we lose them, they become our teachers to deeper truths. They become our introduction to Amida, right? So our truths become deeper. It's not just to recognize my family and be a part of my family, but my family and the people we lose opens the door to deeper truth, to Amida. So to me, I think this is an important part of what the Hoyo can be and where it's directing our thoughts, not only to me and dad, me and grandpa, grandma, but through them to the deepest, deepest truth that we are capable of as human beings. So all of these things, if you don't have a Buddhist name, you would like to have one, talk to someone, talk to your temple president, talk to me, and we can find and create such an occasion. And it's a tremendous way. So when we receive the Buddhist name, there's a prefix like shaku joshin. Okay? Shaku means I am a disciple of the Buddha. Okay? And this is kind of like dedicating our lives and recognizing that I am a Buddhist. Okay? And it's not something that you just receive and shove it in your drawer of favorite things. You know, put it in your home altar. But you should know, what does this mean? Why is this meaningful? And you should be able to know that kanji, know that name, share it with your brother, share it with your children. So this is what we do as Buddhists, and this has meaning to me. Hopefully you will do it and have the same thing have meaning to you. And this is how we transmit our traditions. They should be meaningful to us and meaningful enough to share it with our families. This is why we bring each other to the Shotsuki service, and this is why we remember people together, not only to tighten up the family, but in the direction of the deepest truths of Amida Buddha. One final story, when I was supervising the Portland Temple, this young Japanese couple, they had a son just 1 year old, and he had a cancer, and he was not going to live very long. And it was very, very sad, like he had just been born, but he was sick, so he didn't grow. So he was very little. I went to the home, and they had balloons up floating in the corner of the living room from his 1 year old birthday party. And I'm chanting sutras for that he had passed away. So incredibly sad. But in preparing for this service, they didn't do a lot at the Shin Buddhist temple, but in Japan, other sects of Buddhism have a kind of like a Buddhist name that they call the Kaimyo. And Kai means precepts, a precept name, and we use Hoyo, Dharma name. And the precept name, again, it kind of shows the distinction of other schools of Buddhism, self-powered practice, so they follow the precepts, right? So they're practicing in the name and practice, whereas ours is not precept name, but Dharma name, because we are other power, Amida powered school of teaching. So again, this is another way that the distinction of our specific path as Jodo Shinchu Buddhist, as a Nembutsu Buddhist. Okay? So lots of information, lots of things to think about, and maybe some of you will say, Sensei, that's a good idea. I would like to get my Buddhist name. That's what happened in Alameda after service. Maybe 4 or 5 people. I think I would like to do that. So, okay, let's wait and see, and we'll create an occasion just for that. And this could happen here in Enmanji as well. So please join me in Gassho, and we'll consider the Dharma message. Namo Amida Butsu. Namo Amida Butsu. Namo Amida Butsu. Namo Amida Butsu. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Our closing gatha will be Hotoke-sama on page 116, again, the brown book.
Please rise.
Are there any announcements? If there are no announcements, this will conclude today's service. I would like to thank Reverend Fujimoto for officiating and for his Dharma message. Thank you to Daryl Yagi for the kansho and setting up the altar, Dr. Kent Matsuda for playing the organ, and the October Toban for the flowers and the offerings. If you have not yet done so, please feel free to offer incense, and refreshments will be served in the hall.